right for our next weekly therapy session. Just kidding. I'm Valerie.
And I am Melanie. And today we are going to talk about the customer is always right. Do you hear the sarcasm in that? So I once had a friend and mentor tell me about the SUE acronym. Are you familiar with SUE?
Maybe. It's not coming to mind, I'll be honest. So teach me something new today. Yay.
So back in the day, he was a manager for a customer service department. And obviously, when you work in those departments, keeping morale up is extremely hard and vitally important. Yeah. So he would put together things to help keep morale up and support his team. So they started what they called a SUE error. Stupid user error. This way, anybody on the team, when they got off a call, could yell, SUE! No other customer would have any idea what they were talking about. And it would cause the entire team to laugh and help keep morale up. So, and his explanation for why they had the SUE error or had SUE in the first place was the common assumption is you think the customer is always supposed to be right. But it's really, you're supposed to help the customer always feel right. And there's a difference.
There is a difference. That's true. Yeah, I love that. I'm going to have to use that. But
I incorporate it all the time.
So I have a story from my youth. So out of college, I was going to be the big bad buyer. And because I was going to be the big bad buyer, retail, all that kind of stuff, I just, this was my passion. And I was like, I learned it wasn't, but I did go to work for the top dog at the time in retail, and that was Nordstrom at the time, and straight out of college. And it's actually where I got my formal sales training. You used to walk around with your little book of business and, all the terms we use nowadays, and they'd have Saturday sessions where they'd train you on how to sell, because they weren't in Nordstrom. You weren't just somebody who took the item, scanned it, and purchased it. You were actually commissioned and the whole 9 yards, right? And anyways, and they always said the customer is always right? And I was like, yeah, customer's always right. They were known for, you could take back anything.
Yep.
Worn, not worn, blah, 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 right? And
entire story, all of it. Yep.
Anyways, so one day this lady comes in and she is sketchy, and I can tell that something's up, right? And at Nordstrom, all the buyers have to actually work the floor. So all the buyers, and actually the general manager has to work the floor. Everybody has to sell. You start with selling, you move into other departments after you start with selling. It doesn't matter if you have a PhD in selling, okay, or in economics. It doesn't matter. And so this lady comes in, and I can tell she has stolen this merchandise. I can tell she's done it.
Yeah.
And so she comes up, and I'm actually not letting her give the I'm putting her through the paces, and the buyer comes up and gets angry with me and says, the customer is always right. And I said, okay, here you go. Here's your money, free money for you. So the buyer would go to all the different stores in the unit, right? And in comes this same lady returning an item in the other unit. And later the buyer comes back and goes, oh, You were right. And I said, the customer is always right in their mind.
Yes.
She was stealing something.
Yep.
That is not right. And they are not right in their
No.
mind.
Yep. Yep.
And because of that, I did not want to, I was turning her in, and actually they caught her because of it. And I was like, and everything, but they ran. Yeah. So,
Yep. Yeah.
customer not
In going through high school and college, I worked at CVS, and you could always tell when somebody was doing that exact thing. They'd go into the store, steal something, go back to a different store for a refund.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would be, at the time, because it was, pre everything's digital, it would become one store calls the other and says, hey, this is what's going on. And then, send the message through the internal messaging system. This is the photo we have from the cameras. And there was one lady that not only was she doing this, but she had also singled me out. So she would figure out what my work schedule was and come in and always do a return with me. And while doing the return, she would just straight up be rude and insulting. And so it's like, when you're doing this scam, you're really not supposed to draw attention to yourself.
Yeah, you want to kind of go under the radar a little bit.
You're supposed to be as pleasant as possible and almost woe is me. So I, as the employee, feel bad for you and want to help you.
Let me teach you how to be a good thief.
Yeah, let me teach you. And so I had warned my manager about this and let my manager know. And she's like, okay, next time she comes in, let me know. I'll be hovering to back you up. Well, I didn't see her come in the one day. And I didn't see, because I was really good at watching the mirrors for the store and everything. It's something you learn when you work retail. And so I didn't see her come in. I did not notice her in the mirrors. And then she just appeared in front of me. And I was like, oh no. And luckily my manager had also come around the corner, and this woman did not see my manager there. So my manager watched her. It literally from right behind her. So heard every word, saw her expressions. And I'm just sitting there pretty much grinning at this point, because I see my manager watching this whole observation, this whole situation and how it's playing out exactly as it had played out every time before. And so my manager comes around the corner and goes, excuse me, miss. And you just see her go white as a ghost, red as a ghost. She picks up her stuff and runs out the store. And she might have continued her scam at other stores, but she never came back into my store.
Should we call this tales, not tales from the crypt, but tales from the
customer is wrong.
Tales from the customer is wrong. Yes. Well, and the thing, I think the reason you brought this topic up is because so many times we think about, I've had to fire clients.
Yes, as have I.
They misbehave. And I've also had, at my full-time equivalents, I had a client one time that was screaming and yelling always at the receptionist. And I said, next time, pass them over to me. Because I didn't, at that time, that wasn't a company I personally owned. But I said, pass them over to me. And I basically said, because they were, believe it or not, they were somebody I had signed up, and I was like, so that is not okay. Ever.
Nope.
I've listened to you do this over and over and over and over again. Yep. And that is not okay for that employee. That's not okay for our company. And you no longer can have our services.
Exactly.
And it was like, well, but I'll behave. And I'm like, no, for a solid year, you may not have our services.
You grounded a client.
I did. And I came back, and he came back a year later and said, "I'm very sorry. Can I now work with you guys again?" And I said, "Yes, you can."
Mom, is my grounding over?
He was. And, and I think sometimes in that, clients have a responsibility, or customers have a responsibility to respect a place, a place's business. I mean, COVID was a little bit of an example of that, when people were demanding certain things in business places. And it was like, you have the right to not shop there, but you do not have the right to tell them how they should have their organization. The best way to get an organization to change is to not go to that organization, because everybody else leaves, right? Yep. But you don't have the right to be mean, to be rude.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, it's a huge hurdle in getting through to some founders that the concept of the customer is always right is 100% valid. It's a both and situation. They're going to have an experience. You can learn from them. Mm-hmm. And your job is not to become a doormat. Ideally, yes, they are paying you, but they're not paying for the right to abuse you.
Yeah. And that's a common theme, that because businesses seem faceless, that they can be abused. We see that in I'm ticked, so I rank them terribly in social media, even though it was maybe their own doing, and a lot of us have had fear because people will rank a different way, based on this, and it will hurt. I just got an eyelash in my eye, of course. But anyways, I think the fear mongering with it, and the social bullying that a lot of people do, they think it's okay. I think it kind of started a bit when we started texting, and we didn't have to talk to people. And emailing, you could be, and you see that in schools with kids, you see that all over the place. But there is still a human being other than AI. There's a human, and even in AI, I thank it and I say, please, thank you, all that kind of stuff. I don't know why. There's a human being.
Are they saying that please and thank you end up costing OpenAI I think it's like $300 million a year or something like that?
Really?
Yes.
Please, thank you.
It was an interview with the founder, and he's like, please stop using the words please and thank you. And I'm like, there is a way to tell the algorithm to ignore those words.
Yes.
You can do that.
Yeah.
Granted, you have to give context, because there are times where please and thank you are relevant. Yeah. But it's like, again, that sounds like a business system error. And you now have data to back that up. So that's something you need to take responsibility on, not something us as users need to take responsibility on.
Well, I would say in the last minute of this, the moral of the story is defer to kindness. And have a good laugh when people are not quite the smartest, or whatever interaction that you were saying before.
Yes. Stupid user error.
I'll slam my phone through the computer on my little Post-it note.
Remember that a business is not always just the single person you're engaging with. You don't know what kind of day they're having. They may not have anything to do with why you had the experience you had. So kindness is a good thing. Right. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.